Everything that we identify as in this lifetime is temporary, but the I am is ever present. Who we're becoming and who we're growing into is because of who we're willing to be right now. There are many people listening right now who've been working on the same painting for months or the same book for years. Just begin, just do it, just start, just literally begin the process of allowing that art to release your body. And it really just comes down to a decision where I believe that we're one decision away from everything that we want.
Jenna Ballard
isn't just a transformational leader. She's a force of purpose and empowerment.
She began her career in 2006 as a certified personal trainer and life coach,
transforming the lives of celebrities like Ben Stiller, Katy Perry, and Jeremy Piven.
Her work gained national attention with features on Dr. Phil and The Doctors.
As the co-founder of the Ascension Leadership Academy and a passionate musician using the power of sound to inspire self-love,
Jenna has empowered leaders and companies to achieve extraordinary growth.
With your music career now as a major focus, your book, your music career, you're an incredible coach. Do you intentionally try and find ways to weave them together?
Well, it was...
Okay. All right. Here we are. Creative Path Podcast. Jenna Ballard. Hello.
Hello.
So I am really glad that you are here today because I have witnessed you go on quite the creative path. Your journey as a creative, but like coach to creative in many ways, and the level at which you're playing the creative game at this point is really inspiring. So for people who are not familiar with you, can you give us a little rundown?
Oh my goodness. Well, I just want to say, first of all, thank you for having me here. I deeply appreciate and respect and admire you as an artist and you as a creator. And it's been beautiful to dance in this thing called life with you over the last decade. I feel like I've known you a million years. But yeah, just some backstory on how I got on the path that I'm on today. When I was 17 years old, I was in a head trauma accident and woke up from this coma with brain damage and ultimately got a second chance at life. I mean, there's a huge backstory. I've talked about this on pretty much every podcast I've been on, but really to just distill it down to the simplicity of every single thing that we experience in our life is for us. And I really got to look at life through a different lens and really understand that we only have one shot at life in this lifetime. Many, many, many lifetimes, but this lifetime we got one shot. So no dress rehearsal. And I really decided to take my energy and my purpose and really have it be for people, because I was very self-serving before that experience. And it really humbled me and it deepened my commitment to humanity. And I also became really passionate about health and fitness because I was also simultaneously diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. But I never looked at that as something that was happening to me. I saw all of this as really an opportunity. I saw it as something that was happening for me. And I became really passionate about health and fitness and really took my life on and became a personal trainer. And then my first private client was Ben Stiller and Jeremy Piven and Mark Hoppus from Blink-182 and the founders of Guess and Saudi Arabian royalty, incredible humans, really powerful people. And I thought that I was going to be a coach or a personal trainer for the rest of my life. And that was at one point my number one passion. But I finally got to this place in my career where I decided I wanted to work with bigger groups of actual leaders and really empower people to be responsible as leaders, to be genuine, to be authentic, to be in contribution to humanity. And so I really dove into human behavior and emotional intelligence and leadership and somatic work. And that put me on the path that I'm on today. It's what my husband, Brad, your buddy, it's what we're up to today with Ascension Leadership Academy. And we've coached probably 4,000 people from all over the world in our trainings. And that is something that I really, not only am I incredibly passionate about it, but it's fulfilling for me. But there's also this part of myself, my inner child, that was not, there was a lack of acknowledgement for what my inner child really, really wanted to experience. And I've had many iterations of myself as a coach. I mean, once upon a time, I had this thing called Unicorn University, and I was empowering women to be the fullest expression of themselves and to be absolutely unbridled and unleashed. And that was a really beautiful experience for me because it kind of opened up this whole portal for me to be creative. Because I'm not the kind of coach that's going to sit next to a fountain with her coffee mug and her laptop and, hey, everybody, I'm just doing this launch and join my program. I mean, I was just the cookie cutter approach that a lot of coaches ultimately take with their launches, and I just didn't want to be like anyone else. And I was really curious about how I can set myself aside from what everybody else is doing. And I really started to uncover, and this all came to life at Burning Man. So that I was a unicorn basically the entirety of Burning Man.
I was there.
I know. That's
we
what
were
I'm
in
saying.
the same camp.
I know. So you were a part of that, the birthing of that, where I really, really wanted to create this whole experience for myself as an artist, and that was brought forth. That was flushed to the surface for me at Burning Man. And
right now, what's popping in is when Javon brought that person up to you. Oh. That was the funniest moment. We won't go into it because no one knows what we're talking about, but that moment, still to this day, is one of the highlights of any Burning Man. We cracked up.
I will never forget that moment, because what's crazy is, even though it was so funny for you guys, my internal experience, like all of my inner child wounding got flushed to the surface and activated. And it was beautiful because Burning Man is so transformational. It flushes everything to the surface. So we had very vast different experiences in that moment. But yes, it was funny. But that Burning Man was...
Yeah, someone didn't know who they were talking to, but knew who we all were. And she brought her up to Jenna and was like, "Hey, Jenna, look who it is." And then Jenna goes, "Hi!" Just pretended to know, but didn't really know. And none of us knew. So
no, but the
worst
worst part was I recognized her, but had no idea how I knew her or where she was from or anything. I'm like, it was such a out of contrast moment.
Yeah.
And I pride myself on never forgetting people, never forgetting their names, never forgetting their faces. And it was just such a moment. And, but you guys were dying.
It was a
laughing.
setup because no one knew who she was. And we just were like, let's put her over here.
So messed up. You guys got me good. But that Burning Man, that specific Burning Man, was really where my artist came to life. And then after that experience, I ultimately created and downloaded this course called Unicorn University, and have coached hundreds of women from all over the world. And I did that for many years, and then became a mom, and I'm like, I'm not a unicorn anymore, and I'm this conscious empress, and I'm like, I'm not a conscious empress anymore. And I just was trying all these different monikers, and I'm like, I just get to be who I am. I just get to own my name and my voice. And ultimately right before Jax was born, I downloaded and channeled these 4 abundance mantras, because I'd created an abundance course for women literally 5 weeks before I was about to give birth to Jax. I had so much creativity moving through me, and I thought it would be amazing if I could create a 4-week abundance course, and then I could launch it and then give birth a week later, and then I'll be off and doing mom stuff. And I went into the studio, and I had a friend of mine who is an incredible producer. He was holding space for me in my process, because I had these ideas about creating mantras, and I wanted him to produce the music. And because this is something that I've done many times, I would just basically record in my phone a mantra and then share with my students. But I really wanted to take that to another level. And so he came over to my house. He set up a little studio in my office, and I just spoke into the mic. I closed my eyes and didn't practice. I didn't have any notes. I just closed my eyes and channeled these 4 abundance mantras. And then he created original music to go with whatever came through me. And I created this course, and I launched it. I had like 75 women do it. And then I was momming and COVIDing and all the things, and uprooting our lives, and then came to Austin. And
Healing from mold.
That was also gigantic. That was a really, really intense initiation. But yeah, it was just a really cool thing to witness the life of these mantras and these songs. And then when I was pregnant with Jet, I had all this creativity moving through me, and I came back to Jameson, the producer of the songs, and I said, our songs are great, but they're not awesome. And I would love these songs to be remastered, and I would love to have new music put with these tracks and whatever's coming through me. And so I went back in the studio, remastered, and from a brand new place and space, recorded again. And he created brand new music to go with these songs. And we went back and forth for literally 2 years before I felt like it was ready to be released to the universe. And I said I wanted to be this extraordinary experience. Like the first 3 seconds you hear these songs, it's like a hook into your soul. And I want bass, I wanted be Odessa vibes. And he said, say no more. And we just went back and forth and created these beautiful songs. And I finally finished we finished the 4th song in February. And so the 4-track EP is up on Spotify and iTunes. It's streaming everywhere.
It's
And
under your name?
It's Jenna Ballard. That's currently my artist name. I've been playing around with some different things.
JPB.
But I know I'm just rolling with it because I'm literally the only one in the universe. So it's working for me for now. But I had this really powerful Beyonce moment because I had this album release party here in Austin, and so many people showed up to support me, and it was just this beautiful moment of witnessing really the domino effect of how much I've poured into people and how much I've supported people, and they just really showed up for me in such a beautiful way. And it just was a testament to the power of creating beautiful connections and relationships with people and pouring into people and loving people and standing for people and just the ripple effect that can create in one's life. And so it was a really big moment for me. And I was actually at a dinner not that long ago, and we were all sharing our top moments of the year. It was actually my 9-year anniversary dinner with Brad, and we were covering our top moments of the year. And I said, absolutely, my album release party was one of the biggest moments of, if not my life, definitely this year. So it was a really cool way to just see this thing that I started come to completion. And I'm at this phase in my life where, again, I have accomplished all of these things. Brad and I have the #1 emotional intelligence leadership academy in the nation, if not the world. We've created so much success with that. We've made a big impact with that. And I was noticing there was this piece of fulfillment, like this creative side of myself that was not being fulfilled because I love to paint, I love to make clay, I love to create, period. And when I was 6, I wanted to be in a band called The Burning Logs. I wanted to create this band. I mean, it was going to be my band, and not in a band. It was my band, and I just didn't have the leadership in my family to really foster that and really bring that to life. We lived in a small mountain town, and I just didn't feel like I had the stewardship for that. And I just set it to the side and just figured it was a ridiculous dream. And really the reason why I'm sharing this is I want everybody to know that it's never too late. I mean, I'm literally starting a music career at the age of 41. It's never too late. And I just recently signed with an incredible manager / agent. She managed Miley Cyrus for 10 years. I'm going to be doing voice lessons with Miley Cyrus's vocal coach. And she's created this whole team all around me to support my music career and becoming all that it can possibly be. And so I'm just in that full exploration right now.
First of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
It's so cool to see you stepping into this in such a big way and going, if I'm going to do this, let me just really do it. For people listening to this right now that are not taking that step, they want to go on that. Can you talk about what it took for you to actually commit to doing it, to really saying, I'm doing this now? It's not just a hobby. I'm pursuing this.
Well, it was very alive for me. The music was alive for me. I wanted to do it. And I'd finished my first single, and I held on to it, honestly, for 3 months because I had all these stories. I don't know how to launch music. I don't know how to put it up on Spotify. I don't know what the correct method is. What if I just put it up there and my mom and my aunt are the only people who listen to it? What if it totally flops? And it was this music was so close to my heart and soul, and it was so tender to me. It's my art. And I think that's one of the reasons why artists don't put their art out there, because they don't want it to be judged. It's so special to them. It's a part of their soul. So this song was a part of my soul, and the idea of putting it out there and it just completely flopping it had me not want to take action on it. And I was having a conversation with Preston, our dear friend Preston.
Also been on this podcast.
Yes, of course. And we were just hanging out. I think Alexi was running a Zoom or something, and we were just hanging out. Our kids were playing, and he said, yeah, so tell me what's going on with the music. And I said, well, my first song is done. And he's been very much a part of my process because I've known Preston for 12 years, and he's watched my evolution, and he's definitely a stand for me, and I'm a stand for him. And so he was checking up on me because he knew that I was in the production of these songs. And I said, yeah, well, the first song is done, but I don't know. I don't know how to launch a song. I don't know how to put it out there. I just don't know the first thing about publishing or producing or releasing music. And he looks at me, he goes, you're not getting any younger. He's like, if you're not going to do it now, like, when are you going to do it? And I said, you're right. You're so right. So I left his house, and I literally called Jameson, the producer, and I said, okay, you know how to put songs up on Spotify and iTunes, but we just get to do it. I've been holding on to this. I've been hoarding this. I've been hoarding this medicine because I'm making that all about myself. But really, what I've created is for other people. Yes, of course, that process is for me, but what I actually created is for others. And if I'm hoarding it and holding on to it, I'm making this all about me. And then that's not in alignment with the way that I want to lead and the way that I want to show up for people. So we just decided to put it up there. And And I was really humble and asked for a ton of support. I asked all my friends to share it, use it in their reels, and listen to it on repeat and put it in a playlist and all these different little tricks to make that work. And I had so much support, and people loved the song, and it just really took off in a way that I didn't even think that it could.
It's great.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And you spoke to something that I think is really important for people to hear, which is, I also believe this, which is that the artistic process, the process of creating the art, is about the artist. It's about me. When I'm writing my poetry, that is mine.
Yeah.
And I am going to create what I need to create as an artist. And then when I share it, it's no longer mine.
Right.
It's now yours. Because we in the world take ownership of art. Say, that's my favorite song. Babe, that's our song.
Yeah.
Right? We take ownership of the art, and that's the beauty of art. We can make it ours. And there is, as an artist, two sides of the coin. There is a growth process that happens creating the art. It's an internal process.
That's right.
And so you will face off with all of your fears, your doubts, your insecurities, the part of you that doesn't feel good enough, the part of you that's actually not good enough yet. And you get better and become good enough making the thing. That's all an inner process of development. And then once you have the thing that you've made, the sharing it, I find, is the other side of the coin and has its own growth. It has its own expansion, and it's an outer process, because now I have to deal with the part of me that needs your approval.
Sure.
I have to deal with the part of me that's comparing myself to others. I have to deal with the part of me that is attached to the outcome, and the part of me that doesn't know how to release it or whatever. So that's a whole other area of growth that if we don't ever share, we actually cheat ourselves from receiving.
That's right. And also we block what could ultimately be our biggest transformation because of the edge that you get to lean into, and because of that discomfort, the things you get to confront, the things you get to overcome. And I love everything that you just said. I'm so in alignment with all of it, because it really is that. It's such an inner exploration of our deepest fears, and it's a lot of childhood wounding where we ultimately generated and created this interpretation, this belief that we're not enough, we're not lovable, we're not worthy, we don't fit in, we're not cool enough, we'll never be enough. And it really is ultimately up to us to overcome that by simply releasing it. And because I listened to the songs, the first versions, the first iterations of the songs, and I cringed, like fully cringe. But when I played them before, I loved them. And we're never the same person twice. We're always going to be in the process of being developed as a human, as a leader, as an artist, as a person. And so that's it. Like, we just get to trust that at some point we got to put the paintbrush down, because I'm also experiencing that right now with the production of my book, because I finished it literally 2.5 years ago, right before I was going into labor. As I was going to labor, I finished it, sent it off to my editor, and I knew that was going to happen. I basically envisioned that and declared. I was joking with my writing coach. I said, just watch, because I made it sure I have to finish this book before I go into labor. And I said, just watch. I'm going to be actively finishing the last chapter. I'm going to send it off to my editor, then I'm going to go into labor. And that's literally what happened. So the power of manifestation and declaration. But now I've found somebody to support me in bringing that to life and publishing it. But I'm going back in there and I'm editing things, because I'm not the same person that I was when I finished that book 2.5 years ago. So I'm finding myself now in this other process of I get to write many books. And even the book I'm writing now, in 2 or 3 years, I'm going to cringe and wish that I can't believe I used to talk like that. What was wrong with me? It's like when you get the Facebook notifications from some status update you did like 8 years ago, like, oh. So we're never going to be the same person twice. And we just get to love every iteration of ourselves, because who we're becoming and who we're growing into is because of who we're willing to be right now. And
it's this idea that the work is never actually done. We're just ready to put it out.
That's right.
We're ready to let it go and work on the next. And it's often because we have another idea.
That's right.
It's like, okay, I'm done with this one. I have these other ideas that I want to get to. So this one is now ready. Go. Get out of the nest.
Yeah.
But it's never done.
Never. And I'm sure that there are many people listening right now who've been working on the same painting for months, or the same book for years, or the same song, like at least the thought of it, or in the ideation phase, like they're just in that creation of how I want it to sound and what I want it to look like and how I want it to feel and all of it. And it's just begin, just do it, just start, just literally begin the process of allowing that art to release your body. And it really just comes down to a decision where I believe that we're one decision away from everything that we want.
There's an artist here that I want to connect you to, actually. She's amazing. I just met her last night. Her name is Eden Sloden.
She's one of my closest friends.
You know Eden?
I know her very well.
Oh, see,
yes.
I knew that you guys would. I was like, I got to connect you. I just met her last night. And I would love to have her on this podcast in the future. The story, essentially, of her leaving this corporate career, having a struggle, and then the only way getting out of that health struggle being painting.
That's right.
And then really going, if not now, when? And I'm just going all in on this thing. And within 18 months, she is crushing it.
I've watched her. I've known her for years. So watching her process of, she was one of the top sellers, or in multi-level marketing. I'm not going to say the name because I don't know if it matters or if anybody cares or if I should or not, but whatever. But a really big multi-level marketing company, and so she was all in on that. It was her main thing, and it's all we talked about, honestly, for many, many years. And I watched her development, her process, as she started to open up and explore with plant medicine and really connect to spirit in a really beautiful way. And I was always I was working on getting her to be on that journey of just really trusting and surrendering in plant medicine. And her time was perfect and her process was perfect. And she got to go when she was ready, and she got to begin her process when she was ready. But I think that what she's doing now is ultimately her highest purpose. She is channeling and downloading messages from spirit, and with all these beings and these ancestors that are channeling this art through her. And she's creating these incredible, collage is an understatement of what this art is. It's the most extraordinary art I think I've ever seen. And she cuts out these pieces of rocks and crystals and feathers and suns and moons and planets and intergalactic. I don't even know where she gets these images, but she puts them all together and creates this extraordinary sculpture of, it's totally just, you're looking at this 2-dimensional piece, but it's like 5D. I'm going
to have her on this podcast.
You have to.
Her story is incredible. I met her last night for the first time, and she's having her opening.
I'll be there.
And I was going, who could I invite? Because she said, who do I know? And I was thinking of you.
Oh my gosh.
So
I was literally texting her last night. I said, who else do you want? I really want to support you and bring more people.
Tell her that I'm actually following through on making sure I get people.
That is so good. That is so good.
And so let's talk about, let's go in that direction of plant medicine.
Yeah.
Right? Because I don't know if you remember this. So my previous podcast, the Deep Dive podcast, we had a podcast interview in Santa Monica, California, years and years ago. And you said to me, I don't want to talk about plant medicine.
Yeah.
And I went, how interesting that you don't want to talk about. I'm like, cool, got it. And now you bring it up here, and I see this difference. And can you talk about how plant medicine has impacted your journey, specifically around your creative path?
Thank you for asking that question. Really, when I started to sit with plant medicine was shortly before I experienced Burning Man for the first time. And I really got to, it unlocked this whole creative process for me. In so many ways. It had me look deeper within my soul. It had me connect to God in ways that I never had before. It had me witness aspects of myself that I didn't even know were possible. And it really initiated me into a different realm of leadership and also the power of integration. And I think that that's another thing that's really missing from the plant medicine community, is that there's no integration, there's no accountability, there's no follow through. And so people are always integrating from the last ceremony, so they need to go to another ceremony to integrate and understand blasting up to God and meeting God and, oh, I am God, and 5D. And so it's, what do you do with these downloads when you connect to spirit at such a potent level? And I really feel very called to bridge that gap in that industry and really provide some structure around how to integrate that, so that you don't feel like you need to consistently sit with the medicine, that you realize you are the medicine. Don't you have, isn't that your tattoo?
Yeah, you are the gift.
You are the gift. Same, but you know.
Which was a message that I received on medicine.
Of course. And so I just really want people to be able to see that they don't always need to sit with medicine to receive these downloads. And I've sat with so many different types of medicine. Definitely not as many as you. But you're just so well-versed and you're a full-on veteran. Mad respect. But I've sat with medicine in such a way that I've really established this deep reverence for medicine. And I've used it as a way to open up different access points in my soul so that I can really bring forth the pieces of me that are meant to be birthed in a way that my ego was not allowing me to really bring that forth. And so it's really just uncovered a new aspect of who I am, and also really fostered and nurtured my development as a leader and an artist. So, I mean, just visuals that I've seen, dimensions I've explored, insights I've received, blasting off and sitting with God, understanding that I am God, you are God, we're all connected to it. We're not separate from God in any way, shape, or form. And really being in harmony with the oneness that is the universe, and being able to not just know that contextually, but really experience it and be swimming in that frequency. You can't even explain that.
Did I ever, you were around, we were friends when I was living in Encinitas, and I made my first spoken word album, Permission. Do you remember it?
I do remember.
And how I went into a different plant medicine ceremony specifically asking, how do you want to speak on this album? How do you want to influence this album? Iboga, ayahuasca, peyote. I mean, literally with the concept that when people think of the like healing frequencies, they think of just kind of sounds.
Sure.
But when we're in a medicine ceremony, we're tapped into a frequency of consciousness that's coming to us often in images or words. And so how do I put the words in there?
How can you even explain that frequency? How can you even distill that into a human language, no matter what right, exactly.
Art.
It's the only way.
Art is the way, because art is transmitting a frequency more than it's transmitting a word or a meaning. When you're looking at a painting, we were just talking about Eden, when you're looking at it, there's no words.
Yeah, you can't explain
that. It is
that.
a frequency that you are experiencing. My poetry, while it may be words, at the end of the day, I think of what I'm trying to do with my poetry is paint with words, so that when you listen to a poem of mine, you see a whole world unfold before you, and it brings, as if you're watching a movie. And so I think that art is the way in which we just transmit way more than we ever could try to by logically just speaking about it.
That's
Except
right.
for the Creative Path podcast, because it's art. Basically.
Well, of course it is. Absolutely. How could it not be?
And so you talk about integration, right? What does that mean to you? How do you integrate when you have these big life change? You've had so many initiations in your life, and how do you integrate?
For me, it's daily practices, and that's different for me based on the medicine, based on the initiation, based on the season of my life, whether it's meditating or journaling or moving my body with intention and really connecting to the power of the frequency that's in my body, and then moving that with music, or just really focusing on how I can be as present as possible, because that's one of my biggest challenges as a human, is to stay in the present and stay in the now, which is why I'm so incredibly passionate about creating this book, I Am Her Now, really teaching women how to live in the present, because I basically have a PhD about how to not be in the present, you know? So I've really learned how to really shift that focus and really understand the meaning of that, what it actually means.
What is the key?
The key is knowing that who we are, all that we are, is our awareness. It's all that we've ever been. It's all that we will ever be. And if we can connect to that part of ourself, our awareness, this part of ourself that there is no beginning, there's no end, there's no edge to it. You can't grab onto it. It can't be harmed. It can't be hurt. It can't die. And it's energy. It's just an energy. You can't kill it. It just translates or transmutes or continues on. Like once we are done in these physical bodies, because I can say, I am Jenna, that is my name. But have I always been Jenna before I was this body? No, in the other lifetimes that I've lived, no, I don't know what my names were in other lifetimes. Am I a woman in this lifetime? I am. Have I always been a woman? I don't know. I mean, I can identify myself in how I'm moving through life right now, but what I've always been is this awareness, this soul, this spirit of who I authentically am. And so the most powerful way that I can get myself in the present moment, when I'm living in the future, when I'm regretting the past, or I'm stressing about what could be that's not ideal, and I'm not anchored in my trust about who I authentically am, which is the I am, period. that's all that you need to say. I am, period. I've always been this level of awareness that I am, and it's there's no edge to it. I mean, it's bigger than this room that we're sitting in. It's bigger than the house that we're sitting in. It's bigger than planet Earth. It's one with the universe. And so when we can distill the way that we describe ourselves to that vastness, then we get to remember that there's nothing that we cannot cause and create. We're always infinitely, endlessly connected to God. We're always connected to Source. And I think that the thing that gets us stuck in the illusion that we are separate from God is when we're not in the present moment, when we're in our default. We're obsessing about the future in a way that has us be in fear. We're regretting the past. We're afraid of the future because of our past. And we're not really grounded in what's what, which is I am.
And did you have that awareness because of the near-death experience at 17? Was that when it came in? When did you develop this way of viewing life?
I would say that the waking up from my coma was definitely an initiation. I had this really interesting experience when I was in this coma, because prior to the accident, I was depressed. I was self-medicating. I had this really low level of self-worth. I didn't believe in myself. I actually was obsessing about being able to witness my own funeral. I wish that I could see that. I wish the universe could give that to me, because I wanted to prove who cared about me and who would mourn my death and who would actually miss me if I wasn't actually here. And then I shifted that and I thought, well, I don't actually really want to die, but what if I could be in some kind of an accident that would be serious enough for me to be in the ICU? And that shift in my intention, and I didn't know anything about the law of attraction back then. I didn't know the power of my thoughts. I had no idea about any of that. But I find myself in the ICU in a coma and wake up from this coma with brain damage. And it was like my soul got this upgrade. Like I went into the coma one way and I came out of the coma a completely different way. And I had this different perspective on life. It was something that I can't ever explain that in words. So I just embody it as best as I can. And that awareness and that realization really put me on this path of being a contribution and serving people and using my voice for the voiceless and empowering people to know that they can overcome anything. Because my doctor said, you're not going to graduate from high school on time. I had one semester left of high school. You're not going to graduate from high school on time. It's going to be way too stressful. And of course, my internal conversation is, you don't know me, like watch me do it. And I was really intentional about that. And I decided it and I declared it and I made it happen. And that's really where I learned how to persevere and how to be resilient. And I graduated from high school on time with the highest GPA that I ever had. And so because of the diagnosis of type 1 diabetes, I also became very passionate about health and fitness and then became a personal trainer. My first private client was Ben Stiller at the age of 23, which makes no sense at all, except all the sense because I was being a frequency of fully trusting myself and believing in the power of my work and knowing that I was available for incredible clients. And they just came to me. And so
what arises for me when you share that story is how much you've turned tragedy or difficulty into a gift and found the way to make it, your mess becomes your message, right? Now, I'm curious because this is something that I've been in a deep exploration around, which is if I constantly see myself through the lens of someone who does that, am I calling in more difficulty just so I can continue to turn it into a gift, just so that I can show others how to do that, just so I can prove to myself once again that no matter what happens, I will turn it into magic? As opposed to, is there a way of just, okay, I've done that enough times now. I get it. I know it. And it can be easy.
Yes.
It can be a flow. And I'm curious if you had ideas around this at all or thought about it.
Well, I definitely think that it's important to identify that if we have this deep desire to inspire people or empower people or be motivating for people, it's likely because we've overcome significant challenges in our life. And we were humbled in that. And so we want to be in service to people. We want to be in contribution. If people want to live a beige, boring, behaved life, they're likely going to have not a whole lot of peaks and valleys. Like it's going to be pretty consistent and monotonous. And giving ourselves permission to be open to the vast experience of what it means to be human, all of the highs, all of the lows, that's going to be an experience always. And yes, life can be easier. I believe that suffering is ultimately a choice. The level at which we suffer is up to us. And we do have the ability to confront situations and come up against challenges and decide in the moment that there's what is this teaching me? Not why is this happening to me, but what is this teaching me? What's available here for me? And practice being resilient in the face of challenges, because look at what's happening in North Carolina right now.
Oh my gosh. I love Asheville.
I know you do. And I thought about that because I know you spent so much time there, but it's like there will always be and we can go down a whole rabbit hole about that, but we probably don't have time for it on this podcast. But there will always be things like that happening in the world. And so we just get to ask ourselves how we're going to respond to those experiences, because there will always be highs and lows as long as we're going to be living the human experience, because the human experience is light and dark. It's sadness and it's joy. It's all of it. And I think it's important to be able to have ourselves be available for all of that, the fullest experience of all of it, so they can really deepen our appreciation and respect for contrast, because I believe that we fully know joy at the highest levels when we've experienced sadness and challenges at the lowest levels, and really being able to be in collaboration with the power of what that compass is for us. Contrast is a powerful compass. But I also want to just finish because you asked me, have you always thought this way or have you always lived this way? And the answer is no, I haven't. It's been a very, very long journey of self introspection and discovery and curiosity and really challenging initiations and what felt like hell in the moment. And I've been able to utilize those challenges and look back at them and really see how, if I look back and I see the line, like the breadcrumbs, I understand how all of that has set me up for everything I'm experiencing right now in my life. And I've been working really, really significantly and powerfully with an incredible spiritual teacher who Eden actually introduced me to. His name is Mitch Rosecker, and he's just a beautiful man. And he's really been supporting me in exploring the power of the I am, because that's also my brand. And he really had me he asked me, he's like, what does it mean? Like, what does I am mean? And I had this long list, this exploration, this definition, this example, and this whole explanation of what it means, what I am actually means. But really what we were able to arrive at is I am is the potency of it is simply acknowledging that that's who you've always been. That this awareness that you are, this awareness that you have, that is actually all that you have ever been. And so we have these identities. I can identify myself as an artist. I can identify myself as a mother, as a wife, as a leader, as a woman, as a fill in the blank, but that's not all that I am. And everything that we identify as in this lifetime is temporary, but the I am is ever present. And it's all that ever was, and it's all that ever will be.
Was there a distinct moment that it shifted for you into this awareness, or was it gradual?
It was pretty gradual. It wasn't, because the explorations I've been doing with Mitch were not shocking to me. Like it wasn't, definitely heart opening and mind expanding and all of that. But it was of the same frequency of what I've really been exploring in my journey as a leader and my development as a woman, as a humanitarian, as someone who's a philanthropist and committed to being a contribution to the planet. It was in such alignment that it just made so much sense to me, the understanding of that. Like, and it seems so simple. I go, oh, yes, of course. Okay, perfect. Because we do like to complicate things as humans. We do like to feel like transformation needs to feel like a root canal, or transformation needs to feel like this gut-wrenching experience. And I don't believe that it always necessarily needs to be that. Okay.
And I want to speak about sort of an elephant in the room, play a little devil's advocate here, heaven's advocate. A lot of what we're talking about, the pursuit of your creativity, really stepping into that, I would make the argument is so much easier because you have money, you have a partner who works and also makes good money, right? And you have this business that's successful, social media following already, these assets that you've built, yes. And how much of that is at play in your ability to take the leap into a music career? Mm-hmm. And for people listening to this who might not have those things, would your advice be go and build those things first, get financially stable first before pursuing something like a music career? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I mean, yes, of course, I've built my social media following, which my judgment, my perception is I have a little old following. It's not that big. It's just this cute little following, you know, which I love and I'm deeply grateful for, people who really love my stuff. But my perception and my judgment is like and what I think ultimately was holding me back is my following is not big enough to launch this song. Yet I made the decision to do it anyway. I made the decision to release it anyway. And the relationships that I've built, the creation in the community that I've generated, that has been the biggest catalyst to what I've ultimately released into the world. You know, when I basically started everything from scratch. So yes, I've made in my lifetime, I've made millions of dollars. I've invested in a variety of different things. I've poured into different businesses, specifically our ALA business, financially, personally, financially. You know, and there's a lot that, of course, it's all perception, right? Like people perceive that they see a certain level of success and they make up stories about how easy it must be, or it was just, you know, plopped in my lap. And so I really wanted to say that the challenges that I've come up against, of course, with COVID, I mean, it shut us down. It completely shut us down. And the way that we got to get creative and be bigger than those fears and the actual physical reality of like what was happening, you know, what we got to encounter and what we got to come up against. I think that people just get to realize that if we are going to say, I can't do what she has done because I don't have what she has, you also don't know the backstory. You also don't know what it took for me to make that happen, keep that afloat, do all of that. And so I had so many reasons to give up. I had so many reasons why to not launch my album. As a matter of fact, when I did finish my album, I had a student of mine who's an incredible event planner, and she said, you need to do an album release party. And I said, but I have no capital for it. Like, that doesn't make any sense. I need to just get my because I'm relaunching my hats and my merchandise and all of it. But I'm in the development stages. I'm in the beginning. And she's like, well, you just have to do it. And so I just figured out a way to make it happen, even though I didn't have the starting capital for it, because I started a brand new business all over again. I keep my ALA business separate from my personal business separate. It's just, I would literally start it all over again. I started completely from scratch. And so what I want everybody to hear as what I'm saying and speaking into this microphone is, if you constantly compare yourself with what you see online and feel like you can't do it because you don't have what you see, you also don't know the backstory. You don't know what people actually did to ultimately create that. You just get to be committed to having it happen. And there's always a way to figure it out. There's always a resource available for you. If it's a matter of enrolling your mentor to invest in you, do it. I've done that before. There's no limit. We create the limits in our minds. We feel like we can't do it because we can't see it. But if we believe that it's available and we believe that we're already connected to it, as a matter of fact, we already have it in our pocket. The money's already there. The money's going to come from wherever it is right now. You just get to be open to receiving it and being the frequency of that so that you can attract it and allow it and ultimately have it in your hands. That's the only thing that's going to stand in the way. Mm-hmm. It really just comes down to a decision, and then being willing to be curious and also be willing to know that you're worthy, because there are people who are going to want to be able to give to you, because we are all meant to give to other people, and you're giving people the opportunity to ultimately fulfill their purpose.
I think what you hit on there is really important about you don't know what that person had to go through to put out that thing, mm-hmm. to create that thing, whether it's a business that doesn't seem artistic on the outside or it's a painting. Like, you don't know what they went through right. to do that, but they went through something and they became something more by doing it. And to me, when I look at my journey around entrepreneurship, artistry, whatever my career happens to be, however you define it, the biggest jumps have always come on the backside of a up level that is the result of me saying yes to something that was seemingly insurmountable at the time. Mm-hmm. To commit all of my money in my bank account. I'd finally gotten out of debt, and I committed all of the money in my bank account to make my first spoken word poetry album. Yep. That I had friends say to me when I asked, hey, do you think this is a good investment? They said, how are you ever going to make your money back on a poetry album? You don't you don't tour, like you don't put poetry out really on the internet. Like you're not going to sell the album. It seems like you're going to lose tens of thousands of dollars making this album.
Right. And if you had listened to them, then you never would have created it.
I never would have created it. And the creation of that album, when we look back on it, it activated my music.
Right.
Activating my music opened up an entirely different just world and way of perceiving things. It also became a way for me to lead these ceremonial listenings of the album, which was a different way of facilitating. And did I make the money back on that album? Not directly.
Right.
For sure, not directly.
Sure.
But it led to this and this and this development in myself. And that development, I could say, has made me money.
Yeah.
And the same thing could be said for my last poetry album. And the same thing could be said for fill in the blank. You've known me long enough to remember when I was living in Encinitas in a home that many people thought I couldn't afford, which you could argue we couldn't afford. Right. I mean, like you could make that argument. It wasn't a good financial decision. It was not cheap at that time. No financial advisor on the planet would advise me to say yes to that. And we would have people come over, Evan and Almira would come over and they would whisper, they would go to Preston and Alexa, hey, what do they do? What do they actually do for work? Because the house was so beautiful.
Sure,
and at the time, no one in our circle was really living in a place like that.
Sure.
And I just think about that moment because it forced us.
Yeah.
Within 12 months, I was a millionaire. By moving into a house where when I moved in, I was still in debt.
That's right.
And I had to launch my first group program. I went on tour. I developed my one-man show. I launched my first album, all in 12 months.
Yeah.
And there's a certain level of, we're like plants that fill the pot we're in. And many people have outgrown their pot, metaphorically speaking, but are not willing to take the risk to invest in the bigger pot.
Sure.
Because you don't grow first. You have to invest in the bigger pot first,
right,
so that you can grow.
Yes.
But there is something, and I asked Preston this question. I would bet on you. And I think you would bet on me. And she didn't nod. So I'm questioning
waiting.
it.
Clearly.
Just in general, if you told me I'm going to do this, I'd be like, Jenna's going to be successful at whatever she puts her mind to. She's got that.
I know that to be true about you as well.
And I told Preston the same thing. I said, we were talking about when we met and he had his Prius and he wasn't like living with all the G-Wagon and all the things. And I said, yes, but you were someone that when people met you, they would bet on you.
Sure.
What is that thing? What is that thing that you have, that you see in our close friend group where we go, I would bet on you. And now we're seeing it happen. Well, there's the outward success that our network seems to have that other people are now noticing. But there was a time where we didn't have it, where we were snowmobiling around your small town in California. That's right. and all of us figuring it out.
Sure.
But we would bet on each other and we had that thing. And I own that. I have had that thing. And I want to know if you can put words to what that is.
I honestly believe that it is the decision to be in contribution to humanity. Because that's such a rich and textured decision to make. It is such a responsibility. And it really opens up a portal of infinite possibilities. When one chooses to be in contribution to humanity, whatever that looks like. And I believe the vehicle is going to change many times. I mean, it's changed so many times for you. It's changed many times for me, a personal trainer, transformational trainer and artist now. And so it's always going to evolve. And I'm open to that. But I believe that when one makes that decision, it creates such a deep, rich connection to source, and it activates a whole different kind of frequency. It's this experience and this frequency of generosity. Because when someone is living for humanity, they ultimately are embodying, not always, but ultimately embodying their authentic self is the frequency of abundance and the frequency of generosity and the frequency of we're all in this together. And I believe that is such a potent frequency that is undeniable. And also I believe that people who make that decision and make that choice are also humans who've been through some significant challenges in life. And I think that everybody has the ability to choose that. It just really comes down to one's confrontation, ultimately, of their own mortality. What if my life were over now? What if it were all over, complete over now? Would I be fulfilled with the life that I've created? And if we can really consider that, and also decide that we've already done enough, we've always been enough, or more than enough, even if my life were to be over now, I would feel deeply grateful for what I've been able to experience. I think that the conversation of, well, I haven't done this yet, and I've not done my TED Talk yet, and I've not finished my book yet, or whatever that conversation is, I think that's all ego stuff. I know for sure that I've already impacted the planet because of the exchanges that I have with a barista. I pour my heart and my soul into that person. I have 30 seconds to make a difference with that person. I see every single person as an opportunity to make a difference with and to make some kind of an impact. And I've chosen a life of generosity and a life of leadership because of the challenges that I've experienced. And we always have that choice. We always have that opportunity, but not everybody's going to choose it necessarily. So it's my hope for people. It's my hope for as many people as possible to choose a life of leadership, because I believe that's how we're going to change the planet. If as many people as possible are living on purpose and living their vision and living their mission, I believe that we're going to completely shift the frequency of the planet.
I 100% agree. And what you said, living a life of service for the planet, is your Dharma. And it doesn't have to look, I think sometimes it can feel as though, well, I need to do something that's specifically for other people in this way. But your Dharma for humanity might be making your music.
Yeah.
Like your music that needs to be expressed, that might be your Dharma. And I think if we actually all just were to magically snap our fingers and everyone was living in their Dharma, we would suddenly be in harmony. And so you listening to this, living your Dharma, living the thing that is uniquely yours on your soul, which can change, as we've been talking about.
Right.
But you living in alignment with that is how you be of service. And so one question here before, as we start to land the plane, is do you, with your music career now as a major focus, your book, your music career, you're an incredible coach. Do you intentionally try and find ways to weave them together, or are you just going, no, I'm all in on this and I just trust it'll figure itself out?
No, I mean, my music is coaching. Coaching and the work that I do at Ascension Leadership Academy is very much so a part of the music. And so what I'm now really excited about is creating transformational experiences for people on stage with my music. It's not just a concert. It's not just a performance, but I deeply take people on this journey of self-discovery and self-witnessing and self-acceptance and self-love, that is really the purpose of the music. And let's say universe, I'm just using this as an example. I'm not calling this in. Let's say that I'm in an accident and I, damage my vocal cords or something like that. My Dharma is not necessarily the music, but it's who I actually choose to be. It's how I get to embody and emanate love moment by moment, no matter what. I mean, my purpose has always been the same: to motivate and inspire as many people as possible to know that they can overcome literally anything. And at one point I was using that with personal training and fitness. And then I started doing it with leadership, emotional intelligence, and somatic work. Now I'm doing it with music. And no matter what chapter I'm in my life, I'm always going to be a stand for people to overcome literally whatever it is that they come up against.
I love everything that you said. And any type of accident, which you're not calling in, I know you would turn into the most,
of course,
miraculous, your example for all of us in that way. Okay, so these last questions that I have are more rapid fire, and they're based off of a pathway that I teach inside of my Artistic Entrepreneur program, which is a pathway for how to actually build a life doing what you love. And step one, the first module, is identifying your core conflict. That kind of karmic thing that comes up in every area as you're building your business and you're evolving. What is your core conflict you've had to consistently face off with?
Honestly, not enoughness. I'm not, the art's not good enough, or the painting's not good enough, or the song's not good enough, or the book's not good enough. It's not ready. And I know that that's my medicine. I mean, it's literally what I stand for people to realize that they are enough. They've always been more than enough. And so I believe that's why I have experienced it at such a deep, deep level, because as I'm about to release all of these things, music career, book, all of it, music videos, new album, all the things. It's like that conversation is even getting louder, which is so wild, which is then ultimately having me say, oh, I'm a fraud, I'm an imposter. And like, how can I have these thoughts if this is what I teach? And so it's all beautiful. I'm able to be aware of these conversations and ultimately take myself through a process that supports me in shifting it and transmuting it into art.
Something that's been very helpful for me, you might find helpful, is when because I've released music on Spotify and albums, things, my rule is if we know how we can make something better, we will do it.
Yeah.
And if we know it can be, but it can always be better, quote unquote.
Sure.
But like, if we know how to make it better, because we see, ooh, this spot's not right, but we thought it was done. Nope, we're going back in, we're doing it. But if we get to a point where we don't know how we could make it any better, it's done.
Right.
And so that's been very helpful for me,
I
because
love that.
you will evolve you wait a month, you're going to know how to make it better. But in that moment, that's at the edge of your capacity. There it is. That's the thing. Okay. So second step, once you identified and have awareness of that core conflict at each stage, is about developing a 100% certainty offer. It is the thing that you know with 100% certainty. The person who is like your right client getting that thing from you will have their life changed. And so what is the thing that you have 100% certainty that you really bring to the world?
Literally, no matter who's sitting in front of me, I can have them believe that they're infinitely abundant, unstoppable, powerful, that they can cause and create whatever it is that they want. I breathe life into people in a way that is, I think, really my zone of genius. I acknowledge people at a level that most people don't. I just really see greatness in everyone, and I'm a stand for people to be fully self-expressed.
100% can vouch for you in being that. The messages that you send to me at times, when every once in a while I'll get one of these long messages and I'm, wow, thanks, Jenna. And then I came across the other day when I was dumping a hard drive, I came across you and me in, I think it was Palm Springs. We went on a drive in an SUV and we're dancing to, is it Backstreet Boys? I think in just the two of us. And you remember what I'm talking about? That moment I came across that video. Yeah.
Oh, so fun.
And yeah, so you have always been someone who brings out those more lighthearted, fun, playful, magnetic parts of people. So I'm so happy to see how you're taking that and now putting it into music, because art can reach so many people. And so once you have that 100% certainty about what you bring, it's about crafting signature content. So the content that when someone experiences it, they go, this is the essence of Jenna Phillips Ballard. How do you go about creating that type of content?
I simply, honestly, this is a question that I was talking about with my manager, because she asked me about my songwriting process. I said, I didn't write it. And she said, what do you mean? I said, I just spoke into the mic. I just channeled everything. I didn't practice. I just closed my eyes and spoke into the mic. And so we're actually in exploration right now about my performances never being the same, like me never creating the same song, that I channel and download whatever is meant to come through me for the audience, because I've never memorized a speech in my life. I've talked about similar events and similar experiences, but I've never memorized a speech. And I think a lot of that comes from challenges with the short-term memory, that it's really overcoming that, because what got opened up, and I believe that I've recovered in a lot of ways, obviously, but what was opened up in that experience was my ability and my capacity to channel. And so I really started to lean on that strength. And so that's one of the things that is really consistent in all of the work that I do, is that I just get up and do it. I trust, I open myself, I'm fully able to receive whatever's meant to come through me in that moment. And so it's really that, just trusting that the potency of my work it's not from me, it's through me, but it's not from me. And I really am a maniac on a mission to make sure that whatever it is that I'm pouring into, whatever it is that I'm creating, is of the highest level of excellence, and that it's raw, and that it's vulnerable, and that it's real.
Beautiful. And once you have that signature content that is out in the world, it's about audience building, something I call dating your audience, building authentic relationship with your audience and deepening with them. How do you approach that? I don't post for the sake of posting. I think that when
when I've done that in the past because of the algorithm and like, oh, I got to make sure that I'm posting 3 times a week. And that creates such a disconnection from what's meant to come through me. And some of my most watched live videos were super off the cuff, random, not planned. I didn't let the audience know in advance I was going to do it. But it's the frequency of whatever's coming through me in that moment that really makes the biggest impact. And so I post when I feel I post when I feel like posting. I post when something's coming alive for me. And that's when my art, my creator comes to life the most, when I'm not doing something to kind of be in this cookie cutter plan of action that doesn't have me feel alive in what I'm creating. But I also think that it's just, regardless of whatever it is that you're putting out there, it's really important to be authentic and to be vulnerable. And that's the other thing too, is I don't always only share the best parts of my life. I really am willing to speak about anything. I talk about how Brad and I have almost gotten divorced 3 times. There's nothing that I won't talk about on social media.
Yeah, we're pretty similar in that. Although I've moved away from that actually in the last several years as I reevaluate what social media is to me and what it means. Because I think I may have shared more raw, vulnerably than many humans.
You win the award on that. Like you take the medal.
And so like going that far was good to know that I'm willing to, and I am. And then now coming back to, okay, well, what is that? And it shifts. And so I'm still in that inquiry. So building that audience, authenticity, vulnerability, and lastly, now it's about building your monetization ecosystem. And how do we monetize? We're doing all of these things. We're authentic. I know so many people listening. I'm authentic. I'm committed to excellence. I'm in the moment. I'm making my art, but they're not monetizing. They're not able to monetize for whatever reason. What is your approach to how to now monetize?
Well, I'll speak to somebody who maybe at like the beginning phases. How I started to monetize as a coach. It was really interesting. I decided internally that I wanted to make this leap from being a personal trainer to an online coach. And I made that internal decision, and I started putting out different kinds of content. And what was really interesting was I was at the very beginning of my career and at this transition. And I really wanted to invest in working with this coach, and it was $5,000 that I didn't have, and I had all this shame about it and all these challenges. And so I wound up asking one of my clients to give me an advance on sessions, one of my personal training clients, and he was so happy to do that for me. He was so excited, and he was in his joy about it. And so, I mean, it wasn't a gift. I was working that money off anyway, but he was so happy to do it. And it was like just this shift in my own level of self-worth, because I used to have all these beliefs about what it meant to ask for support, and I don't want to ask anyone for a loan, and but I opened up this different frequency. I activated a new frequency. My self-worth was being realized in that moment. And without even saying anything about me being a coach, I literally had 2 women reach out to me 2 days and within a matter of 48 hours after me asking for the advancement on these sessions. And they said, hey, do you happen to be an online coach? I would love to hire you. I love your content. And I didn't make the announcement that I'm doing that. It organically happened because of the choices that I was making that was in alignment with what my truth was, which is I am now an online coach. And I think I charged them like $500 a month for 3 months. They got to pay up front, something ridiculous. But it was just, I got to lean into that edge. And then I had and I attracted more clients, and then I started increasing my rates. And so you get to be willing to, and it's not do the work for free, but I also did that. I said, let me coach you for literally 6 weeks. I want you to see, for someone who just didn't get it. They didn't understand. And so I said, I believe in the work that I do. I'm committed to that. And I was just willing to do it for testimonials and social proof and taking screenshots of text messages they were sending to me. So you just get to be willing to be like really just bootstrap it and just do whatever it takes. And you're going to get to a place where you can start charging $2,500 per hour or $10,000 per hour or whatever it is that you want to charge for your services and the magic that you create. But there always gets to be a beginning.
I love that you shared that, because we have a very similar background. I was a personal trainer that then transitioned into life coaching, quote unquote. And then, but I was an artist even during that whole time. And just, I remember at one point I posted on Craigslist and I said free life coaching in exchange for testimonials. And I coached a young woman, and she didn't do any of the homework. And I just went, if people aren't paying, it's just not the same.
Right.
For my experience, it's like they have to pay.
Yeah.
And I wasn't yet ready to make that leap. And that was more than a year before I actually took the leap into starting coaching. And when I hired my first coach, it was $5,000 that I didn't have and I had to put on a credit card, and started charging, I think it was like $3,333, for my first coaching packages, and just raising my rates slowly and surely. And so you're highlighting part of building a monetization ecosystem is having some humility.
Sure.
And just going, this is what I want and this is where I am. And so often we compare ourselves. There's so many coaches online now, which wasn't the case when we started in nearly the same way. And there's sort of this pricing now that you're seeing and whatever. It's okay for you to go, I can't charge that yet.
Yeah, it is.
It's okay.
It is
but
okay.
I need to get better.
Right.
I need more clients. I want more experience, and I'm passionate about making this work long-term. And so I'm going to do what it takes for the long-term vision. And so thank you for sharing that, because I know how long you've been in this game and you deserve everything that you have and so much more. And I am such a huge support for anything and everything that you do. Jenna, please let people know how they can support you or be supported by you with all the things that you're doing and support the music that you're going to be releasing.
Thank you, Adam. I just want to say thank you for that acknowledgement, and also thank you for having me on your podcast. I just am such a huge fan. I'm like literally your biggest fan. I think that you know that. It's just been beautiful to watch you and your evolution and everything that you've caused and created, the impact that you've made. It's just been beautiful to be a witness to and a witness of. So how you all can find me, definitely super easy. Jenna Phillips Ballard. I'm the only one in the entire universe. Social media, my website. You can listen to my music on Spotify, on iTunes. And how you can support me, listen to my music, share it with people, use it in your reels, and definitely stay along for the ride, because I'm releasing a book next year and I would love to have you all in my ecosystem for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on this podcast. Thank you everybody for listening or watching this podcast, taking the creative path with Jenna and I today. If you got value from this, please share it out with someone that you love. Help us spread this message, because empowering people on their own creative paths is one of the most important things that we can be doing in these turbulent times. And when you do share, please tag myself or Jenna so we can see what was most resonant with you. Where did you get the most value? Always, in all ways, family, you are seen, you are heard, and you are loved. Have a really beautiful and blessed day. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate you taking the time. If you are interested in building a life that you love through the 3 pillars of relationship, business, and creativity, then I encourage you to continue checking out more of my content, including this video, which I really think that you will like.